I'm a simple college student, living alone in an apartment. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver here in the States. I have purposely locked myself out of all media and the internet aside for school purposes. That means no 4chan, no V, no Bulbapedia, etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy Soul Silver on its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive. I decided that during that time, I would replay my Crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized that long ago, my mom threw it away because I told her the save went dead, and I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my Silver version, so all I have is my Game Boy Color. As such, I set out to GameStop and bought a used Silver version, as it's the only Pokemon game left that they have for the Game Boy Color. $10. Fairly cheap. I went home and started it up for a nostalgia trip. However, that's where things started getting bizarre, and most likely the reason why you read this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on. The same thing happened. I tried pressing the A and start over and over again, and all of the buttons. Eventually, the logo vanished and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game in a previous save file, which was odd as I was expecting all these carts to have been wiped by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen continue option just to see what the previous owner did anyways. First off, I checked his trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile and he had 999 hours and 99 minutes put into the game, with all 16 badges and nearly a million Pokédollars and all 251 Pokemon on the Pokédex. Seeing as he apparently had Mew and Celebi logged also, I'm guessing he either used a Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what a badass team he has. To my surprise, I saw 5 unknowns and a 6th Pokemon that's named Hurry. I'm thinking that this must have been some cruel joke by the person who last played the game, but I decided to check the profiles of those Pokemon anyways. As expected, they were different letters of unknown, all level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, but I identified the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be a Cyndaquil. Mind you, this is before there were individual Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 HP left, with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that despite my attacks, none of the Pokemon he had said their usual cries, just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was parked at whatever appears to be a room inside Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason, there were no NPCs around. Even more eerie was that the pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if leaning on its side. There was no music at all, and there was no exit or ladder, or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes, but can't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I've seen in the Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black, and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognized that melody I heard to be the theme when you listen to the radio at the Alph Ruins where the Unknown are at. I suddenly realized that it wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room and would need Flash before I took care of that, though. I immediately checked my Pokegear to change my radio to something more pleasant. But it turns out that there was no radio card or even a phone nor time cards. There was only a map card in which Gold ... from earlier, and I will call him Gold from now on, was walking in the midst of black. I recall that Cyndaquil has Flash, so I turned off my Pokegear and made Cyndaquil use Flash. I didn't see any message saying, "Hurry has used Flash," or anything like that. The room just became lit like that, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling blood red with a linear gray path heading south. The ladder I used to go up or down was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly, I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I chose yes, as I do not know what it was asking, and the screen went black again, making a ladder climb sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced with the not as creepy poker flute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly it said that Hurry has fainted, which was odd since I recall that there was no status conditions like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in a battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon are there, but instead, all replaced with level 10 Unknown. I did the same thing as before and spelled out the Unknown. My then team of Unknown spelled he died. Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of that room were gray bricks as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside that room to be a bunch of graves similar to the ones in Pokemon Red or Blue. I've walked around that small room and pressed A, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game and some sadistic fuck sold it to GameStop. However, my curiosity kept going. I checked the trainer profile of ... again only to find out that the sprite of Gold was missing his arms. He also seems to appear less smug, but rather more sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason it also says that he has which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimless wondering, my character suddenly spun around and did the escape rope spinning animation instead of flying up. Instead of flying up, though, my character spun downward slowly, as if sinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overrolled sprite of Gold is colored differently now. Instead of the usual red color he dons, he appears completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came from the colorless Game Boy games placed to a colored background of the Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and now, while is as white as his overworld sprite, he lost his legs and has what appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says that he has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me as this change seems to represent something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which this time contains 5 unknowns and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The unknown this time leveled 15 and spelled out dying. I checked the Celebi's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there's only half of the sprite. 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye. It only has 1 attack. Perish Song. The area I was in was the Sprout Tower with the immobile pillar as before, except everything was apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually I finally encountered some generic men and women NPC. They were all lined up the side, just facing the long slantious pillar in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happens when I try to speak to them. I kept on north until eventually the pillar finally appears chopped off with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to red, and without even pressing A, I was suddenly engaged finally in a battle. The music starts again, which sounds like the unknown radio music again, but played backwards. Gold's battle back sprite matches his front one with the bloody eyes, white skin, and lack of arms, while red sprite was the same as before in GSC, except transparent. The text said wants to battle, as if he has no name, and both of us only have 1 Pokemon each, which is weird, as I swore I had 6 with the unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out conveniently with half a sprite for the back sprite also. The shiny noise and animation was different, as the sounds it made sound like multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sent out seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he is level 255 and his sprite seems sad and has tears in his eyes. Rather than the usual fight, item, Pokemon, run menu, I was only given the option to use the attacks. Since Celebi has 1, I chose it. Naturally, since Pikachu was 255, he went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get KO'd. Not like I have a choice. At this point, it didn't even go back to the fight menu as the battle just continued without me. Also note that there was no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage despite his level and boost as his health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happens as if it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a shit ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 HP. Pikachu used Mean Look. Not like that did anything. As expected, due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted. Except in the text it said, Celebi has died. And instead of the ordinary drop off the screen animation, the Celebi back sprite just vanished. For some reason the Pikachu was still up even with my Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu just used one more different attack beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. After that, it said Pikachu has died, with the slow fade out animation. Apparently I was the winner, as the transparent red sprite showed up and said ... At that point I just freaked out as the transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld, with another change to the gold sprite. He's now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, where this time the only thing that remains of him is his head, with the transparent skin. The head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes. It now stated that he has 40 badges. I then backed out and checked my Pokemon. They were all level 20 shiny unknown, which spelled out no more. I was at what I now know is to next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I still felt like something there could be heard. I was back in my room in New Barktown. Maybe finally I get to play this game properly, but who am I kidding? I knew that sadistic fuck had done something. I walked around my room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs to see what was awaiting down there. No, I said walked, as while the background was moving. Gold was not moving his transparent limbs at all while doing so, just floating like those ghosts you see in Diamond Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go down to the stairs. I ended up in the same lower level room of my house. Everything appears normal, except Mom isn't home. After failing to interact with anything in this room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, that door leading outside at the south didn't work, and instead I could just walk straight through it like it was some void. I continued moving south to see what the fuck was going on. My house vanishes as I head south into the void. It was creepy as when I entered the void, the outline on Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area, and Gold's sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it. He said, "Goodbye forever," notably with a space in between the forever and ellipses, and vanished. As that happened, it said !use nightmare, which at that point I would not deny being impossible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning slowly downwards like before. I'm now back into that small, hollowed out room surrounded by graves earlier, or at least I say I was back there, as there's no sprite anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved, not even wall bumping noise. I checked my trainer profile with absolutely no Gold sprite left. It said I have 0 badges, and all the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 unknown. As expected, it spelled out a phrase that I dared to read. I'm dead. As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in was then covered with the same blocks as the walls. I then figured out that the room was when the final text that said R.I.P. That room was a big grave surrounded by other graves. Gold has already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempts at becoming a Pokemon master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of his death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game, and the same thing happened, at which I then finally decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the gimmick unknown the same way again. They say that only the first generation have folk tales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually just enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I still can't unthink what that rigged game has told me.